Natova and Som Kong. May you have a sweet and happy and healthy new year. And for those who are fasting today, a safe and meaningful fast. Before we begin our Yom Kippur creative service, take a moment if you'd like to go to our website at templebetham.org to find a companion packet that can join this service. We respect the many voices of prayer, how people engage through music, through activity, through discussion, and there are many ways that we can connect with one another. This packet is meant to be thoughtful, meant to encourage conversation, meant to help us have a deep dive into who we are and what we're trying to improve upon for next year. We pray in many different ways, we connect in different ways. So let this packet help guide you and support the many learners and many types of people within our community as we respect one another. We wish you a Shana Tova, and we hope that this packet helps enrich you today during the service, tonight or tomorrow as a family, and when any other time you may need to come back to it.
Hashivenu Adonai Elcha v'nashuva Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu Hashivenu Adonai Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu Kedem. You were only waiting for this moment to rise. You were only waiting for this moment to arise.
Shana Tova, may we all have a sweet, happy, and healthy New Year 5782. Welcome to you all as our community joins for this Yom Kippur moment of prayer, reflection, and growth. I'm Rabbi Jason Levine, and it's such an honor to be joined by my incredible colleagues, Rabbi Ruth Zlotnick, Rabbi Dana Benson, our truly amazing musicians, Noah Zeichner and Carol Bannock, to all of you who bring your energy, who bring your spirit, who bring your hearts. We join today on Yom Kippur, the most sacred day of our Jewish year, to engage in honest reflections, in song and prayer, and a commitment to grow. This service, this special, unique, wonderful service, will combine traditional prayer with modern approaches and ideas. It is the creative service, after all, created for all ages to enjoy and to find meaningful. We'll try some things differently, but hopefully through video, through music, through a performance, we'll gain from this holy time that we have together, connecting to this day of days. Our guides through this service will be the prophets Isaiah and Jonah. Traditionally, we read from each of their books during Yom Kippur Haftarah in the morning and in the afternoon. Today, their texts will be placed in a modern context, and more so, crafted and performed so they are actually in conversation with each other. These pieces have been beautifully written and performed by Rabbi Dana and Jasmine Joshua. We are so grateful to them both. Isaiah will challenge us to pursue justice in our day, and Jonah will give voice to many of the concerns and hesitations that may hold us back. Together, through Isaiah and Jonah, through the prayer and poems of the service, through the creativity and the openness that each of us brings, we will follow the path of holiness that can help us to make teshuvah, repentance, and repair our relationships with ourselves, with others, with the world. This service, this creative service, encourages us to engage in prayer and Jewish values in new ways. But we welcome Isaiah and Jonah to open our service on this Yom Kippur.
I'm so sick of people complaining.
What do you mean?
I just hear so many people, like, griping about privilege and oppression and safe spaces like they're professional victims. You know, like, don't they have the right to vote? Like, isn't discrimination illegal? What more do they want?
Jonah, do you think that everyone's really treated equally?
Today? Yeah, pretty much.
So you, Jonah, would be comfortable experiencing homelessness, being of a different race or ethnicity, possibly being LGBTQ identified or being somewhere on the gender continuum. You'd be okay with any of those things?
No, of course not. I'm me.
So you do recognize there's a difference?
Yeah, but I mean, that isn't my fault. Like, that has nothing to do with me. Like, I did my own hard work. I didn't create the problem. Why should I feel guilty for what I have?
No one's asking you to feel guilty.
Good, because I don't. I didn't do anything.
Look, acknowledging that you have privilege isn't an admission of guilt. It's a way of, guilt is a way of motivating us to do better next time, of changing our actions. You couldn't have chosen how you were born or what kind of life you were born into any more than you have hazel or green or blue eyes, right? So everyone has their own experience they're coming from.
But then why should I feel guilty for things that I didn't do?
No one's asking you to feel guilty, Jonah. Enough with the guilt. I know that we're Jews. We love guilt. I get it. But enough with the guilt. It's not about feeling guilty. Look. Do you know the story about the guy in the boat?
Yeah, the one where they threw him off and he got swallowed by the whale. Yeah, no, I lived that one.
Okay. No, not that story, Jonah. But this one has to do with responsibility as well. Once upon a time, there's this guy, or person, let's just call them Shmona. And Shmona bought a ticket to get on a boat with a bunch of other passengers. Everybody paid for their ticket, everybody had their seat. So, all of a sudden, in the middle of the boat ride, they're traveling, they hear a mechanical drilling sound. All the passengers look around, they come to find out that it is Shmona drilling a hole right underneath his seat in the boat, and now the boat is taking on water. One of the passengers, rightfully upset, comes up to Shmona and says, Shmona, what are you doing? You're going to make us sink. And Shmona says, I paid for my seat. This is my seat on the boat. I can drill under it if I want to. The passengers were, of course, extremely distressed.
I mean, why? Shmona had the right to his own seat.
Yeah, but the boat was going to sink, and they all were going to die.
So, what happened?
The boat sank, and they all died. Moral of the story.
Don't let people bring drills on boats.
No! Don't be Shmona, Jonah! Oi, how am I going to help Jonah understand that this whole planet, our communities, all these things, we're responsible for helping them and making sure that they continue to grow and survive? How can I help Jonah understand their responsibility to all these things?
Oh my God, look what happened. He fell like right over. Stupid. Yeah.
don't we go for a walk? Why don't we take a walk, Jonah? Where to go? Look at all these plants.
In the Tana Tokef is a heavy prayer section about the great shofar sounding, about the realities of the sacred day, about the unknown fates of us all. Even as the words may be intense, let them be a door that welcomes us into some honest truths. Today is a day to not hold back and not hide behind things we may tell ourselves. We stand together, we pray together, we confront the challenges of the day and of the self together. Unatana Tokef begins on page 208. Our sovereign God of pardon and forgiveness, let these words of sanctity ascend to you.
Unetane tokef kerushat hayom ki hu nora ve'ayom.
Let us proclaim the power of this day, a day whose holiness awakens deepest awe and inspires the highest praise for your dominion. For your throne is a throne of love, your reign is a reign of truth. In truth, you are judge and plaintiff, counselor and witness. You inscribe and seal, you record and recount. You remember all that we have forgotten. And when you open the book of memories, it speaks for itself. For every human hand leaves its mark, an imprint like no other.
Berosh Hashanah ikatevun, ikatevun. Uviom tzom Kippur yechatemun, yechatemun.
On Rosh Hashanah, this is written, and on the fast of Yom Kippur, this is sealed. How many will pass away from this world? How many will be born into it? Who will live and who will die? Who will reach the ripeness of age and who will be taken before their time? Who by fire and who by water? Who by war and who by beast? Who by famine and who by droughts? Who by earthquake and who by plague? Who by strangling and who by stoning? Who will rest and who will wander? Who will be tranquil and who will be troubled? Who will be calm and who tormented? Who will live in poverty and who in prosperity? Who will be humbled and who exalted? But through the return to the right path, through prayer and righteous giving, we can transcend the harshness of the decree. And let us give ourselves over to the power of this day. And let us give ourselves over to holiness and awe. Let us calm the voice of dread and fear. Let us submit to the power beyond and within. Let us take the path of sincere return. Let us give ourselves over to the path, to the prayer of the heart. Let us feel the pull of righteousness. Let us give ourselves over to the still, small voice. And let us awaken to the wholeness of body and soul. And let us awaken to the wholeness of thought and deed. And let us see in the darkness a doorway of hope. Let us give ourselves over to the power of this day. We continue with Baruch Hu, page 178.
As we were informed by Jonah and Isaiah, The act of self examination is not always an easy one, but this day of Yom Kippur is about helping us first and foremost deepen our own relationship to ourselves and to God. We are so grateful to congregant Amy Kelman, who in the video ahead shares a little bit about how we help to nurture that relationship with ourselves and repair whatever may be broken.
For me, forgiveness isn't a gesture or a statement. It's a choice and an obligation. It's active, at times demanding constant, impossible attention. It is an insistence. Yom Kippur offers us a chance, an opportunity to pivot, a sacred, recurring moment, always arriving just as the leaves are changing. We process the difficult. We reflect, we regret, we viscerally thump on our hearts. We yearn and we hunger and we begin again. Vaguely similar to a New Year's resolution, but deeply and inexorably bound with the depth and sanctity of our ancestors, the spiritual and the sacred, and informed by the dynamic teachings of Torah, beautiful, messy, imperfect, and complex, just like us, but wrapped up in the holy and the care of our community. This service forces us to reflect on the difficult, at the same time commanding us anew to endeavor to find and share the light within us. My personal relationships, my history, and the current state of deep political division we're now living in sometimes make it extremely difficult for me to feel anything but frustration, rage, anger, and hopelessness. When those feelings flood over me, I know I need to seek the light and the beauty in the present, in this world. I just returned from a week in the middle of 2 million acres of remote wilderness with my family, blessedly disconnected from everything. We made our way down 75 miles of a pristine river with strangers and guides who turned out to be friends. We relied on one another, cared for each other, and trusted. We had faith. We saw shooting stars, and we basked in the majesty of it all. Taking this literal journey for me was like a superhighway towards inner peace and healing, a reboot. But it doesn't have to be that big or adventurous. I also find what I need in a tree, seeing the sun rise or set, exchanging a smile with a stranger, an unexpected kindness, finding a weed growing out of a crack, catching sight of the mountains or water, knowing the moon is up there shining above us all. I choose to believe that most of us are inherently good and that most of us are just trying to do the best we can. Humans are imperfect, all of us. Forgiveness isn't optional, it's essential. My beautiful children teach me immeasurably. I know that to best care for them, I need to care for myself. With the same compassion, grace, and forgiveness I can easily find for others, but seldom for myself. There's so much in this world that is truly unjust and unforgivable, and that is exactly why we must use our strength, gifts, voices, and power to strive to bring safety, peace, healing, respect, and justice to all human beings, to create the world we'd like those who come ahead of us to live in. I struggle a lot on the way, but I've taken Pirkei Avot to heart. I am not obligated to complete the work, but neither am I free to desist from it. I need to put faith, beauty, grace, compassion, loving kindness, and forgiveness ahead of all the darkness. The opposite simply has no allure.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod, Shem Kevod. thou shalt love Adonai your God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And all these words which I command you on this day shall be in thy heart, shall be in thy heart. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and thou shalt speak of them when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, and when thou risest up, and when thou liest down, and when thou liest down. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and they shall be for frontlets between thine eyes. And thou shalt write them on the doorposts of your house, and upon thy gates, and upon thy gates, that he may remember them, and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God.
In this past year, we've been blessed enough to have our hearth groups, our intentional small groups gathering. And we had one hearth group led by Brian Rutberg, who helped us with all the honors of this High Holy Days, a past president. And this hearth group was really all about ahava, love, and chesed, loving kindness, compassion. And they took the notions from Ve'ahavta, the prayer that we say after the Shema, and came up with their own version. So I'd like to share with our community today the alternative Ve'ahavta by our Ahava and Chesed hearth group. Love Adonai by loving humanity. Show love through your actions. Love your neighbor as yourself. Provide food and shelter. Act with compassion and equanimity. Give to the stranger as to the community. Be kind and mindful of unseen struggles. Visit and comfort the sick, the bereaved, and the lonely. Be accountable for your actions. Make amends when you fail. Interact with empathy. Listen with an open heart and an open mind. Be mindful. Be present. Be purposeful.
So, I'm not sure what exactly you want me to do. Like, I can't solve all the world's ills, and anything that I do is just a drop in the bucket. Like, what does it matter?
I can't solve world hunger, so I'm not going to donate to any food drives.
All right. I mean, look, okay, I acknowledge there will always be poor people or people who are worse off than me, but I have what I have because of my hard work. Like, I did it on my own.
Let me ask you a question.
Fire away.
Did you really do it on your own? Didn't you go to a public school, have access to public libraries, have access to clean water, to healthy food, to community? You take for granted the privileges and wealth that you've already benefited from.
So you are asking me to feel guilty?
You and the guilt. I'm talking about acknowledgement of disparity, of recognizing complicity, and tshuva, and repentance, and returning, and repairing.
So you want me to be some sort of, like, social justice warrior? Like, am I supposed to just give up everything I have and give it to someone else?
Social justice isn't about taking things away from you any more than Yom Kippur is about punishment. Is this not the fast I desire, huh? To break the bonds of injustice and remove the heavy yoke, to free the oppressed and to release all those enslaved.
That just seems like a lot, like for me to do on my own.
It is a lot for any one person to do on their own, but not asking you to do it on your own, Jonah. In fact, the actual point of this conversation that we are having and will continue to have is that your actions or inactions actually do affect other people and vice versa.
So again, I ask, what do you want me to do?
I think it's more about what I want you not to do. I want you to not be complacent. I want you to not be comfortable. I want you to not be complicit. When we are complacent, we are complicit. Jonah, what's the fast that we need today as opposed to generations ago? We need to fast from consumerism, from pollution, from perpetuating misinformation, from dogpiling on social media. We must fast from being silent in the face of injustice and being loud when it's not our turn. Our fast is one from thinking that we live in a vacuum and that our actions or inactions don't affect the rest of the world we live in, but it's time for us to fast from racism, from homophobia, from xenophobia. For you too were strangers in the land of Egypt. Eh? Jonah, if you can't see why these blights on humanity don't concern you, then you, my friend, must also need to have a fast from having your head in the ground like an ostrich.
That's a lot to chew on.
How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu Dolfi, Yai Dai 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 Dai, Yai Dai 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 Dai, Yai Dai 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 Dai, Hevinu, Vehirshanu, Zadnu, Chamasnu, Tafalnu Sheker, Yai Dai 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 Dai, Yai Dai 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 Dai, Ya'atnu Ra, Kizavnu, Latnu, Maradnu, Niatsnu, Sararnu, Avinu, Pashanu, Tsararnu, Kishinu Oref, Yai Dai 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 Dai, Yai Dai 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 Dai, Yai Dai 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 Dai, Rashanu, Shichatnu, Ta'avnu, Ta'inu, Tietanu, Yai Dai 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 Dai, Yai Dai 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 Dai, Yai Dai 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 Dai.
We remain standing for those who do. On page 252, we call to the Divine One, Avinu Malkeinu, the parent and overseer who we turn to for aid and help. We call to God and ask for forgiveness, courage, and guidance. Today, we recognize and know our frailties and share them openly. We know that our work is not done, and there is much honest, vulnerable, potentially uncomfortable work ahead. God, our parent and our guide, is there for us, and we are here for each other. We'll first join in the Avinu Malkeinu on page 252, and then we'll learn from Janice Blower Chima and Endebuisi Chima. We're honored for them to share their story and their insight about how far we have come with removing bias, and how far we have yet to go. First, Avinu Malkeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu, Ki ein banu masi, Aseh imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed, Aseh imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed, ve'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu, Ki ein banu masi.
The best way to understand your culture is to experience a different culture. Life is constantly challenging, and more so when you confront social and racial bias, both from people who know you and from people who don't know you. Ndubuisi and I met as students at the University of Washington. We married despite objections from my family and the greater community. We have 4 sons and 3 grandsons. I was raised in the Portland, Oregon Jewish community. We became members here at Beth Am to connect with other Jews in Seattle and to help provide a strong foundation for our children.
I was born and raised in Igbo tribe of Nigeria. My family is Catholic, which I no longer practice.
We agreed that we wanted our kids to grow up with a religion, so by consensus they would be Jews. Jews and Igbos have certain traditions in common. We circumcise our boys at 8 days. We have performed animal sacrifice, placing a high value on education and respect for elders.
My experience at Temple Batam is no different than what anyone would have in a community. Some people are open-minded, some are neutral, and some are close-minded. At Temple, things I have observed are friendliness, indifference, and subtle rejection by way of quick glances, avoiding eye contact, and welcoming smiles.
It has been a paradox for me because Judaism teaches us chesed, loving kindness. But in my experience, there have been times when some have missed the mark. Being a mixed race family at TBA has enriched our lives and fulfilled my dreams for my children and likewise for me and Ndubuisi, building connections to our Jewish community.
My worldview expanded because I only knew what my religion taught me about Jews. From participating in Jewish life cycle events,
like our son's B'nai Mitzvot,
and celebrating Shabbat, and so on, I now understand more about what it means to be Jewish.
We're happy that things are changing for good, even though there's a long way to go.
Thank you, Janice and Ndubuisi, for helping us recognize how important sacred conversations are to help us create a world in which we can all thrive. And there's a sacred conversation that we have with the divine that our sages have given to us through the ages. It's known as the Amidah or the Tefillah, and it's on page 198 of our prayer books. And we're going to do this a little differently than we have done it in the past because the Avot, the first prayer that we're going to do, Rabbi Dana and I are going to offer an alternative. Avot means ancestors. and it's about how we embrace the merit of our ancestors by bringing our values into the future. And so we take note of some ancestors who don't always get noticed in our prayer book. If you're able, please rise. The tefillah is on page 198.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up our lips that our mouths may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu.
May I find a balance between remaining present while preparing for the future by working for peace and social justice, between protecting my safety and my sanity, between caring for others and caring for myself. If I wonder if I'm strong enough, may I remember that I carry within me the courage of the suffragettes, the trade unionists, civil rights demonstrators, Stonewall rioters, protesters for racial equality, environmental protectors, and other activists at the forefront of movements for freedom and equality in this country. Blessed are our ancestors who have guided our path today, adopted from the prayer for self-care by Kohenet Ahava Lilith Evershine.
Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor leolam Adonai, mechayeh kol atah rav lehoshia, morid hatal. Mechalkel chayim bechesed, mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim verofeh cholim, umatir asurim, umkayem emunato lishanei afar, michamocha ba'al gevurot, ומדומה מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה מי כמוך אל הרחמים זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים לחיים ברחמים ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום ככתוב על יד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוך כל הארץ כבודו אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו אחד הוא אלוהינו הוא אבינו הוא מלכנו הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו לעיני כל חי אני אדוני אלוהיכם ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהיכם דור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We'll continue with the rest of the Amidah in silence, whether guided by the words on the page or the still small voice within.
Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Sim shalom. Tova uvracha, sim shalom, tova uvracha. Chen v'chesed, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Chen v'chesed, chen v'chesed v'rachamim, v'rachamim, sim shalom, tova uvracha, sim shalom, tova sim shalom, tova uvracha, sim shalom, tova uvracha. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Amecha, sim shalom, sim shalom, tova uvracha, sim shalom, tova uvracha.
This is so overwhelming. Like, where do I even begin?
Anywhere, like literally anywhere.
So what? I'm supposed to go around and apologize to every single person that I might have wronged or offended, like, just by being myself?
Okay, you're being disingenuous.
Yeah, you're being ridiculous. You're asking me to do something impossible.
I thought you agreed that there was a justice in the world and that you wanted to understand.
I do want to understand. I just don't see it the way you see it. Does that make me some sort of monster because I'm not on the exact page as you?
If you really cared, you'd work harder to catch up.
Look, it takes time. Who made you the moral authority?
The world is burning.
Oh my God.
literally and figuratively, and you don't have time?
What is good enough, Isaiah, when I'm as good as you? How many woke points do I need to rack up before you consider me a righteous Saudi? Was there not a time that you had to learn about your own privileges? Did you go from 0 to 60 in your learning? Didn't you have a learning curve and make a bunch of mistakes? I just need time to process.
I'm sorry. You're right. It's frustrating to have these conversations, and we need to keep having them over and over and over again and then over again. Someone once had to have this conversation with me, and then somebody else, and then another person. People are still having the conversation with me. I am still learning. I am still growing. I am still processing and unlearning and relearning.
It's helpful to hear that you aren't perfect at it either. That it's this ongoing journey, you know. I'm starting to figure out that I can only handle one aha moment at a time. Like, I do care. I do. I'm scared. Which is why it's hard to like turn around and help. You know, it's so much easier just to pretend that it isn't happening.
But it is.
You know, I wonder if there's just another planet that I could head to.
How did that work for you when you went to Tarshish instead of Nineveh, huh? Yeah. Jonah, how long have you been sitting surrounded by the same gourd? See Jonah 4:6-11 if you didn't get that reference. Which, this gourd, by the way, is not providing you any shade. It can't help you with the discomfort you feel in the world.
I mean, meh. Like a few years or so. Like, why?
Because maybe it's time to face the fact that this plant isn't working for you anymore. Maybe it's time to find a different place to dwell. Look, we don't all have to build the pathway for the future all at the same pace. But whether we acknowledge it or not, we are all building it together. Either by aiding or harming the process. Choose life, choose good, and choose love.
I get it. It's one choice at a time. So how do you eat a whale? One bite at a time.
I share with you these words from Seattle's own Rabbi Will Berkowitz, helping us recognize how we can approach the world with more wonder. It is not easy to forgive God. It takes huge effort. It is painful, contradictory, and maddening. The human suffering that surrounds us feels utterly unforgivable. But I will forgive God because I do not want to write off the relationship, because I feel there is too much to be lost by simply walking away, because I want my children to develop their own relationships and come to their own conclusions, because despite the pain, sorrow, and suffering, I want my universe full of miracles, not void of them. Because I do not want to be one more angry old cynic in the world. I want to believe a voice still calls out from Sinai, from heaven. That's why I will forgive God. I want to engage in the internal conversations with ancestors and sages. Despite it all, I want to live my life in praise and awe and love, in wonder and hope, even if I am wrong. Even if at the end there is nothing but darkness. This notion of cultivating hope, of cultivating wonder, of cultivating love, even when there is hatred and suffering all around us, is perhaps the most sacred act we can do. To cultivate love, and to find a community where we feel most connected. We are so grateful to, among our newest members, Alex Pearson and Thomas Harrison, who are going to share what it means to feel love from our community.
Hi, Temple Bethel. Alex and I moved from San Francisco to Seattle around 10 months ago. We started researching temples who share our same core values surrounding inclusion and equity, and Temple Bethel popped up in our search. We started attending virtual services in November.
After 8 months of regular online attendance, Temple Beth Am was finally able to open their doors for a Shabbat service. That service happened to be Pride and Juneteenth theme.
As a member of the LGBTQIA+ community, raised in a conservative household, I've never really felt accepted or welcome in a place of worship until Temple Beth Am. Attending the Pride and Juneteenth services demonstrated Temple Beth Am's commitment to inclusion, and the clergy team and members have welcomed us with open hearts and have made us feel like family from the start.
As we enter the High Holy Days, we wanted to acknowledge how included we felt by the community at Temple Beth Am. What spoke to me the most at the Pride and Juneteenth Shabbat service was the call to action. As a community of doers, we create the world that we want. Inclusion and equity, those start with our thoughts and actions. Let's use the next few weeks to reflect on where we have been as a community and where we are headed.
What Alex and Thomas share with us in their message is how grateful we can be in the moment that we recognize goodness in our lives, in the moment that we recognize blessing. As we do the hard work of Teshuvah on this day, we also want to make sure to feel a sense of gratitude for all the acts of kindness and goodness that we engaged in. Please join me, if you would like to, on page 425 with our Hakarat HaTov, recognizing the good. Hakarat HaTov, what gives us strength to pursue goodness. Awareness of the good that is around us, decent, generous acts that remind us of what is possible. Here and now, in this world of moral ambiguity, so our sages taught, one mitzvah inspires another. Thus we acknowledge and celebrate those who do their best on the job, whatever their level of pay, and those who run an honest business, who don't cut corners, falsify, or lie. Those who labor in obscurity to help others or advance the frontiers of truth and science. Those who add beauty to the world through the arts or through unselfish deeds. Patient teachers who see the potential in the shy or difficult students. Students who focus on learning not just good marks and earn their grades fairly without cheating. Athletes who exemplify good sportsmanship and self-discipline. All those who use their wealth to benefit society and the greater good. Those in high places who resist the corruption of power. Whistleblowers alert to malfeasance who bravely sound the alarm. Public servants who do the people's business with integrity. Politicians who place conscience above popularity. Those who travel far from home to defend our country from foes. And those who keep our community safe, who run into fires to save lives. Parents who care selflessly for ill or troubled children, and children who give time and love to frail and aging parents. Loving spouses who remain faithful, loyal friends who stand fast in times of trouble. May their mitzvot inspire our own. May we find the strength to emulate their honor. Let us take joy in remembering that goodness still abides.
We continue with Misha Beirach, our prayer for healing. We especially think of those who have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, those who still struggle for life. We are grateful to the medical professionals who continue to work tirelessly. We think of those who are at risk each day, due to the color of their skin, how they pray, whom they love, or where they are from. And especially now we think of those who have been distressed or displaced from fires, earthquakes, or from their homes, or seeking refuge in the new land. We think of those who are ill and struggling around us, our own loved ones. It's been a year of challenge, so we come together with this prayer of healing, seeking from God and each other continued comfort and strength. We welcome you to mention names of those who are ill out loud or in your homes, or to keep them in your heart. We ask God to shelter us all. Misha Berach, page 273. Page 293. We stand in humility, conscious of our failings. Shema Kolenu, Adonai, hear our call. Because I was angry, because I didn't think, because I was exhausted and on edge, because I'd been drinking, because I can be mean, because I was reckless and selfish, because I was worried about money, because my marriage was dead, because other people were doing it, because I thought I could get away with it, because I did something wrong, because I'm in pain, because I wish I could undo it, because I hurt them, because I lost their trust, because I let them down, because I was self-destructive, because I was foolish, because I'm ashamed, because that's not who I am, because that's not who I want to be, because I want to be forgiven. God, bring down my walls of defensiveness and self-righteousness. Help me stay in humility. Please, give me the strength to do what's right. Shema Kolenu. Please, God, hear our voice.
Shema Kolenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chus v'rachem aleinu. Shema Kolenu, Adonai Chus v'rachem aleinu. Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu Hu Sverachem Aleinu Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu Hu Sverachem Aleinu.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us for this creative service, for experiencing this adventure, for pushing each one of us, for going outside of our comfort zones and seeing what can be. Thank you to my colleagues, Rabbi Ruth and Rabbi Dana. Thank you to Noah and to Carol. Thank you to Jasmine. Thank you for all who created videos that helped make this service something truly special. Before we conclude, we must mention that the high holidays do not end today. We look forward to celebrating the next major holiday, Sukkot and Simchat Torah, with you all. We're thankful to our Beth Am Brotherhood for building our sukkah and our seed students for helping to decorate it. We look forward to celebrating Torah, beginning the story of our people once again, at the same time celebrating the newest learners to our Gan Youth Learning Community. We have some really creative ideas for Simchat Torah, special for this special year, so we think you will enjoy it when you join us. There's so much happening, and please stay tuned to our website and emails for everything going on. Family-friendly things for Yom Kippur and Sukkot. Please return the food bags for JFS by September 16th so we can help those in need. And again, thank you. Shana Tova Mituka. May we each have a sweet, happy, and healthy new year.
We return to the words of Hashivenu, the sounds of laughter as our spirits rise and lift just a little bit on this day. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem.
We're so glad that you joined us for this portion of our day as we explored the sacred texts of our tradition. We'll continue to move through this day of days together. So we invite you to take a moment to take a break, and we'll see you again at the next service.